It's like one of those 60s. Oh, hey, welcome to OnSet. I am Daniel Norton. This is Cadence. We got Seth over here on the Mighty Mix. You know, DJs are supposed to have the one headphone, right? I don't know why Seth doesn't do that. I haven't figured that out yet. Let me know in the comments below why Seth only
I'm not a DJ!
He is a DJ. He's a DJ. Let me know where everybody's coming from. I'm stealing that from Gavin because he does that every time. Always steal from Gavin Hoey. He knows what he's doing. Let me know where you are in the world. So yeah, we're going to talk about color. So one of the most fun things that we can do as photographers, so many fun things we can do, is we discover gels. We're there, we're taking pictures, and then we get some lights, and all of a sudden we're like, hold on, I can make the background blue, or purple, or red, or green. Oh, and then I can put another gel on a person, and I can do this, and then all of a sudden, yeah, you shouldn't have done that. So we're gonna talk a little bit about using color today. We use it a lot kind of in the general portraiture anyways, but I wanna kind of focus on that a little bit today. So we're gonna walk through, we're gonna show you how to apply gels and get the right balance to a flash, which I have a Profoto flash here. I also have a LED, a RGBW LED that allows us to change the color. We'll talk about the advantages and disadvantages of each system and kind of walk through and make some few simple like kind of portraits and stuff. If you have questions, let me know. I will try to name the gear as I go, but I always forget after the very first time I do it. So if I don't say something and you want to know what it is, let me know in the chat and we will let you know. So starting with, let's start with the basic portrait because I feel like that's the best way to do it. Here I am in my studio. I'm going to use this Profoto light here. This is a Profoto B10. It is a 250 watt second flash. The reason why I like to use flash generally is because it allows us to take control of our space. We are also going to use a constant light, but we'll mess with that a little bit in a minute. So I have this fitted inside my favorite softbox, which is the Chimera extra small, shallow, silver lined softbox. If you want to know why this is my favorite softbox, well, I made a video about that. So I have some clothespins here. We're going to use that for the gels in a second, and we'll talk about that. But let's just get a basic exposure. So I'm going to come a little bit more to the center. There you go. All right. And this way, because I think I put the paper wrong. Okay, perfect. Nope, you're good. All right, so we want to make a portrait, and we're going to light it up. We want to take our flash and place it above the center of it should be above eye level. We're going to put it like at a 45-ish. My camera in. This is a Nikon Z6ii. It is fitted with a 24-70 lens, which is basically the kit lens. A lot of people ask about what lens to use for portraiture. I like to use this 24-70. I find 70 to be a good length for portraits. Longer lenses will be favored by a lot of portrait photographers because of how they change the facial structure. But for me, I like this one. Okay, so first step. We want to set up our shot so that none of the light in the space is affecting our shots. We want to start off so that only our lights are making a difference here. Because I have these lights in the ceiling, I need to set my camera with enough kind of closed down so I can not see Cadence through the camera. Does that make sense? Yeah. So I've done this before, I swear. All right, so I'm going to set my ISO at the lowest possible ISO within the normal range, which is 100. I'm going to set my shutter speed at the fastest shutter speed with it, that it syncs with flashes. Not taking into account something called high-speed sync because we're not going to deal with that today. And then I'm going to set my aperture at whatever it needs to be in order to get the room dark. And then beyond that, I can do whatever I like. I tend to like to shoot portraits around 5.6-ish, and it turns out, looking through the back of the camera at 5.6, 200th of a second, 100 ISO, that it looks pretty dark. But to confirm that, I'm going to just take a shot. Cadence here. Okay. Doesn't need to be in focus or anything. I just threw it in manual focus because it's so dark in here. And what we've got is effectively a black frame. We're in Capture 1. If we grab our exposure slider and move it over, as soon as we start to see her appear, there she is, we know that that's basically our base shadow level, about 2 stops. So we're about 2 stops dark. That's good for me. That means I have some room in post if I need to bring the shadows up or anything like that. We're good to go. So now I'm going to turn my flash on. This is a TTL flash. Sometimes people ask me, they'll say, Daniel, that's my name. They'll say, why don't you use a meter when you're using flash for these demos? And thank you. The flash is off. And the reason why is because I am using a meter. It's a trick question. I'm using the camera's meter. TTL means through the lens metering. So if you're familiar with your camera's meter, how it works, whether you're using matrix or spot or center weighted, whatever you like, then TTL will work well for you. So it's going to, basically what happens is the camera looks at the scene, it takes some information, it talks to the flash, a little tiny photo assistant runs out there and meters it, comes back into the remote, tells the flash, all this stuff goes on at a blink of an eye, and boom, we get a proper exposure in theory. So let's take a quick shot and see what we get. Boom, boom, boom. All right, there we go, right? Perfect. So now, we've got our exposure. We can make a judgment here. TTL is, any light meter is always going to give you the exposure that it thinks is correct. But you, as the photographer, need to look at the exposure and say, hey, is this what I like? And note, by the way, that this dark gray background is, of course, darker than you see with your eye here. We can see light on our face. We can choose shadow. This is all caused by the single flash, because remember, with no flash, we get that. So this actually looks pretty good to me, nice and crispy. And, well, that went too fast. All right, so that was supposed to take the first 10 minutes, so I'm just going to sit here and drink coffee for a minute. No, I'm kidding. Okay, so, all right, so that's simple enough, right? Now, if we wanted to add color, it would, any color we add to our single light or to our lens or to our white balance or anything like that is going to be what we call a global adjustment, right? It's going to affect the entire image. Like if I were to come over here and say, oh, you know, the white balance is set at 5,000, which is where I set it for this camera usually. Let's say that I wanted to set it at incandescent, which would be like a tungsten light. We'll see that she becomes very blue. Now, that again is affecting the entire frame. If you want your whole frame to be blue, well, there you go. You're done. You're good to go. You can just hang out and see what else happens. If you don't want that to be the case, though, what you want to do is keep the correct light, white balance, and then start changing the color of the scene using another light. Okay, so what we're going to do here is I'm going to bring in my secondary light, which is this Rotolight AEOS 2. This is again, RGBW LED. I'm in the shot, right? And effectively what it is it's an LED that allows us to, I'm showing you the front because you couldn't see the back if I showed you the back because it's too small. It's going to allow us to change not only the brightness, darkness, but it's also going to allow us to change the color. So I'm going to point at the background so you can see. Hopefully this will help. I think we'll turn off the overheads here too. Let me do this first so we don't get completely dark. We'll turn this on. Boom. This one's battery powered. You can also run them off the wall. Turn off the overhead lights. Okay. It's very greenish.
Yeah, it's so overexposed, it doesn't even look great.
It's overexposed. Okay, so I'm going to turn the exposure down so we can see it better. That's probably pretty good, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So I got it turned down to about 59%, which is a lucky number. Let's make it 58. Okay, and we can see that I can go through a variety of different colors. We got red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo. Oh, that's weird. Well, it says purple. It's not really indigo.
It's fuchsia.
It's like a fuchsia color. Well, it's kind of weird. It's making my eyes all like, ugh. So let's say we want this purple background. Now, if we point this purple light at the background, and then we go back to our camera. Wow, okay. And we turn off the flash, because obviously the flash is going to affect it. I can now, I'm going to do this. I'm going to show you through the camera. What we can see is that, oh, the light's in the shot a little bit, but that's okay.
Witness protection.
Yeah, exactly. Witness protection program. So we can see that the background is this like dark purple at my current settings. If I were to change my aperture or my ISO, it would affect my flash and everything else. But what I can do is change my shutter speed, which will not do that. So if I start going to a slower shutter speed, what I will get is a brighter and brighter background. Now, if I go too bright, what will happen is I'll start to basically get blown out. And you can see that it's going like white there and I'm losing saturation. What we want to do is find an ideal saturation for what we're looking for. I think somewhere around here looks pretty good. This is 1/30th of a second at 5.6. If I make a photo, what we'll get is that, right? What you see is what you get. Now I know it's not perfectly even because I have the light to one side, but you get the gist of it. If we want it to be even, we can put it behind her, and we'll do that as we play around. So now this is fantastic, except that if we now turn our flash back on, and I make the same exposure, some of the light from the flash is going to hit the background, and we are going to lose a little bit of the saturation. Not too much, but a little bit, right? As it turns out, this actually works to our advantage, especially on this side. And as usual, Cadence has made this a perfect shot. Ruining my demo. No. So, right, so this is because, remember, we only made the background slightly dark. If we want the background to mirror this perfectly here, what we'll need to do is feather our light off. We turn the overheads on so you can see. We got to feather our light off so that it's not hitting the background hardly at all. And again, if we're going to do that, we need to go back and we'll get rid of this background light. Things like grids can also help you. But let's say we take this light here and we go back over here and we take a shot. I feathered the light. So feathering the light means, oh, I'm still at 30th of a second. Sorry, let me go back. All right, feathering the light means that you're taking the light and using just the edge of the light on your subject. So we can see now, I mean, again, it's not completely black, but we can see now how much darker the background is here, which means that if we take the light and turn it back on, and we go back to here and we go to a 30th of a second, and I turn the overhead lights off. So many steps. It's like when you're using the 4x5 and you have to keep doing the, okay. What we'll get is a slightly more saturated background. So now this is closer, right? This is now closer to this, if that's what you were looking for. So we definitely need to be aware of what our neutral light, our key light in this case, is doing to the situation when we want to make a colored background. But the real question here is, why are we doing this, right? Like, why did I choose purple? Was it just because it was the last one in the line? No, I mean, partially. I did it last for this reason, but when we look at the chosen outfit that Cadence has, we can see, oh, why just go to one, how nicely it separates against it, right? We want to start thinking about, now, her dress is kind of this greenish yellow color, right? Highlighter yellow. Yeah, highlighter yellow, is that the color of it? It's highlighter yellow, right? And the opposite, if you look on a color wheel at highlighter yellow, you will see the opposite of it is purple. So we're kind of across from each other. We're using complementary colors to bring one color forward. Now we can do it like this by just putting her on against the background, and we'll see more of this if I switch to, I know this is, you know, the kids do this sometimes. I do this, you kids. I'm going to use what's called vertical shooting. This is a bonus, guys, bonus. Now the reason why, I don't know why they call it vertical shooting, but you know, hey. Has something to do with esports, I think. Seth knows why it's called vertical shooting. Good.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
Seth knows. Right, we can see more of the dress. We can see how it pops. You know, because when you are doing your homework and you want to read the chapter and you highlight it, you want to pop, right? So we can see how we get that nice saturation and pop because we have neutral light on the greenish yellow and then an opposite color behind her. Makes her stand out, pop. The more of the yellow we put in the shot, the more pop we're going to have with the purple. Now, we could go the other way and go like more neutral, more flat, right? So let's find a color that's close to her dress. I'm going to turn off this light again. I should really get a clapper. Do they still make those? Clap on. All right.
Yeah, you can get it with a chia pet now.
With the chia pet, okay, nice. Oh my God, that's funny. All right, so I'm going to take this highlighter yellow. I'm going to use this yellow color, which surprisingly is close to that.
Pretty close.
Yeah, pretty close right out of the box. And I'm going to make it a little bit brighter though. And this is going to mess up the cameras here. I'm going to make it, I'm going to go at 68, which is 15% brighter than the original exposure, because I can do math. And I'm just going to come back and go back to a cooler horizontal shot because, you know, the kids are crazy. Liking that vertical stuff. I don't know what the deal is with that. All right. All right, so if we go this way instead, again, I'm down to the same exposure. Even though I turned the light up, I kept the same exposure because I want it to be a little bit poppier, right? Now, what we're getting is this image that's like weird and like 60s like dance scene in some kind of weird movie that it shouldn't have a dance scene, right? And and this could also be very interesting because now it really makes her skin tone as our opposite that sticks out. And we can definitely, let me try to get the light a little more even. So I'm going to use this shorty stand. So whenever you need one of these and you're on a film set, you just yell out, "Get shorty." Right. No? No?
How would the backdrop change color the way you're controlling the color of the background now?
How would the backdrop change color when I'm controlling the color of the backdrop? Well, it's changing color because I'm hitting it with colored light. If you put a light that has color on it onto the background will pick up the color of that light as long as no other light is going to infiltrate and affect the shot. That is.
So the color of the paper matters.
Oh, does the color of the paper matter? Well, yeah, the color of the paper, of course, matters. This is gray paper, pretty neutral. This is fashion gray, I think, or maybe gray tone, gray something. This is dove gray. This is dove gray. But yes, if you add, so right, that is actually a good question. So I will turn the light back on so I can address the question because it's a good one. I think it's the right question. I think I'm going to answer the right question. If you knew you were going to do this, if the fashion designer came to me and was like, "Hey, I have an idea. I have this yellow highlighter dress and I want to do something really yellow highlightery," I could look for a roll of seamless paper or a background that was already close to the color and then hit it with colored light, which would make it even more saturated. So you can definitely do that as well. If you don't know what you're going to have, some kind of neutral gray is probably your best. The hardest one I find to light would be black or white, because white's going to be hard to keep your exposure proper, and black is going to be, again, hard to keep your exposure proper. So somewhere in the middle, gray is usually your best bet, if that's what the question is. If not, then I answered another question. Okay, so I put this in the middle. It's a little closer to the background, so the color, the exposure might be a tiny bit different. I'm going to come up with my tripod a little bit. All right, here we go. Yeah, there we go. All right, so now we've got this bright dress with the bright background, which, I mean, if you look at that color, I mean, that's not bad, right? Almost like we planned it. Right, so I think that she looks a smidge dark, so I'm going to give my front light a little bit of a burst of exposure. And again, I'm changing the flash in the front. It should not affect the background too much because it's not really touching it. It's hitting it a little bit. I mean, it's not 100% perfect, but we can see that it really didn't change. This stayed nice and neutral. Her skin tone looks great. Oops, oh, it's in the wrong thing. Her skin looks great. She has that little touch of yellow there. And now we're using color in a way to continue our story, right? Nice and simple. We can also, you might think, well, Daniel, what if you put the yellow light on the subject? I find this to be something people do a lot, so I'm going to mess around a little bit here. Putting a colored light on somebody's skin, it depends on the person's skin tone a lot, is what it's going to really, I mean, obviously that's going to affect it, but whether or not it's going to look good or not, right? I think too much yellow on Cadence's skin tone might not look great, so we might want to go back to the purple, but let's see. Let's just start here because it's always best to start with a bad picture. That way, when you do a good one, people are more impressed. If you just do a good one right away, people just think, well, it was easy, obviously. You just did it right away.
So they're asking, is that LED a stop or two brighter than the key?
Okay, so this LED is, this is a good question. Is the LED a stop or two brighter than the key light? The answer to that question is, it is not. It is the same, well, because remember that when you're dealing with stops and ratios, it doesn't matter the actual power of the light. It has to do with what it's doing in the image. Because I looked through the camera and I made it the exposure I wanted to make, it's the right exposure. You know, the power is really irrelevant. It's about the same exposure though, if that makes sense, right?
Yeah, it would be blown out if it was over.
Right, if it was brighter than the key exposure, then it would be blown out. If it was darker, then it would be dark, right? So when you're thinking about ratios, you have to try to not think too much about f-stops and stuff, and rather about the baseline, right? And our baseline was here where it is, so I didn't change it. Like I didn't look through the camera, say that looks perfect, and then make a change. So it's not brighter or darker, it's the same relatively. Now, if you were going to repeat this, you could meter it. That would be a good idea to just use a light meter and make sure. All right, so what did I do? Oh, I put the yellow light on her. Let's see what that looks like. Now, I'm going to guess that if it's hitting her skin, it's not going to look that good, but on her hair, it might be okay. But let's start with it on her skin. This light is not particularly easy to control the edges because I don't have any barn doors, although I do believe they make barn doors for it. I'm going down to 50% power here, and I'm going to do just what I did before. So we'll do that because since that was a question about exposure and key and stuff, I'm going to turn the live view on. Okay, this is what we're getting through the camera without any flash, right? This is basically the non-flash. Actually, yeah, do that again. Really tilt this way. There we go. Boom. So you can see that without, this is a 30th of a second, so it's likely going to have some blur to it. We can see that this has this almost like weirdly golden look to it. But if you notice too, her dress picks up way more, looks a little bit more green than yellow because we're hitting her with yellow light. So since there's no neutral in the scene, the yellow feels neutral, which means that the greenness of it sticks out more. That makes sense, yeah. The greenness. So let's come back in because that looks like a decent exposure to me. That looked correct. So now I'm going to come over here to my flash and turn it on. And we know the flash exposure is correct because I haven't changed anything. So we'll start here. Good. And we'll adjust. Okay? So because we made the same exposure, what it looks like is terrible yellow light hit her face as opposed to like a cool, interesting shot, right? This, cool, interesting shaping the face. This, I hit you with a yellow gel because I bought this expensive light and I want to show it off, right? So it's like using a fast lens, you know, when you don't need to. So this is not good. What we want to do is, and it's not even about the color. If I change the color, it's not going to help. I have to either change my flash to a different setting to get something. I mean, honestly, this here is actually not terrible, but let's say we want a little more detail. Let's say we like the idea of this, but we think that that's just too much, a little too stark. Let's come in and make that our baseline, and let's take our flash and turn it down. I'm in manual mode, and one of the simplest ways to do this is to grab your exposure slider. I'm going to slide it over until the skin tone on the flash side looks neutral, so right there, about 3 stops. And then I'm going to come down here to my flash, and I'm going to turn it down 3 stops. Now, in theory, what this should get us is almost just very little fill, basically. We're just going to get a tiny bit of fill. Yeah. And now from here, we can start to dial it up or down. That gives us a baseline to start with anyways. Baseline is a new word. Am I saying baseline a lot? I do say, I find a word for the day. The word for the day is baseline. This is too bright still. I'm going to go down 2 more stops based on my own personal taste. Let's see if we can just get a little bit of a... Okay, nice. And now let's have you turn your face this way slightly. Yeah, there we go. Yeah, this way towards the flash. There we go. Boom. Right. And now what we're getting is a balance. We have this little bit of clean light coming in this side, and this yellow that kind of looks golden warm, and we have this little bit of kind of greenish color here, and we're getting this kind of shape. Now, whether or not you like the position of the light or whatever, you could obviously adjust it. But now we're actually making some shape and scene using the color. But let's say that's not really what we want to do. Let's bring our flash back up. Let's say that we like the idea of the main flash as our key light. We like the way it looks, or at least we think we do. We're going to start there, and then we're going to come in and use the light in a different way. So let's turn this off for a second. This kind of greenish yellow is probably not the look we want. Anyways, for this one, we'll probably go blue. But let's start here. Questions, thoughts, concerns? Okay. Coming back with the flash again, I'm going to, instead of just going straight up with the flash, I'm going to use gels. So I want to kind of go into that level. Now gels, for those who don't know, or in this case filters, these are Bogan. Who remembers Bogan? These are effectively, found these in a box at my house. These are effectively sheets of plastic that are designed to be very specific colors, repeatable colors, right, that we can use on our lights so we can get the same effect over and over again. So for instance, here's a purple one. I got a little sheet behind it. So let's take this purple gel, and they're all numbered, right? So this one here is 136, which probably doesn't mean anything anymore because Bogan's no longer in business, but this is pale lavender. We're gonna take our pale lavender gel. I'm gonna take these clothespins, AKA C47, and I'm gonna just kind of put it inside my softbox. So you know inside the softbox you've got these ribs. I guess I'll spin it around so you guys can see it. Just put it in there first. They can see it on the other hand? Okay, I'll spin it over there so you can see it. All right, I'm gonna put these on first and I'll show you. Okay. All right. So we can see, hopefully, the four clips are holding the gel in front of the light. Generally speaking, you want to leave a little bit of space so that, because even though your flashes, this one's got an LED in it, it's not particularly hot, but if you start flashing really quickly, it can generate heat, so you want to leave a little room for it to breathe. So we do that. Then we close up the softbox as best as we can so we don't spill too much out the back. We don't want to waste any. And we'll come in here. So now we're going to start with this lavender gel. It does eat some light, of course. So what we're going to do I know what you're saying. You're saying, Daniel, what are you doing? Huh. I'm going to do a little bit more of a butterfly set of light here. You know, one of the very first things I tell photographers when they're teaching them how to light, and by they I mean that book from 1976, is not to put the light right on top of the camera. So don't put the light right on top of the camera. Sure. So we're going to put it kind of in the center. This is often called butterfly lighting because this is how the famous photographer Jose Butterfly lit. Is that not true? Okay. All right, it's called butterfly lighting because in theory, it creates like a little butterfly under the nose and lips. All right, so we're putting it in the center. We can see that she's looking very pale and lavender because it is a pale lavender gel. And and again, the whole scene looks that way, right? So this is very, very pale, very, very lavender. If we come in with this, we've got these hard shadows here. If we take our other light and we move it in here in the front, and instead of going color with it, we're going to go neutral. So I can just go a regular daylight, basically. And what I'm going to do here is take this. We're going to switch back over here. I probably should just use another flash for this, but that would require me setting it up. All right, so we can see through the camera. And this is our exposure, and I can actually turn my light up if I want to get more. I just kind of want to fill in a bit. Okay, this is where we're at. So if we do this and then we turn our flash on, we should be able to kind of clean it up to get us somewhere in the middle. Yeah, okay. So if you notice, she's much more serious in the second shot. But what we're seeing here is, and again, we're going to tweak it, is that this entire image is purpley lavender. This one still has that vibe going on, but in the bright spots, in the highlights, we're starting to pull some neutral, which just means that it has a vibe of lavender. I think it's still a little bit too lavender. So I'm going to dial up my flash a little bit more in the front. By the way, this is a great way to like shape the face as well, because it's going to grab the highlights on her face and it's going to bring them forward in a neutral way. All right, let's try that. And this is a subtle thing. Takes a little bit of tweaking. There we go. And we can see now that we're just starting to get that little bit of pull. It's just barely there in the skin, right? And it could be any color. I just happened to pick lavender because, again, it was on top. There are actually what's called beauty gels, and this falls into that section. We also have amber. I think amber would be a bit much for you though. Yeah. So this is cool, literally cool, right? Okay, but again, in and of itself, it just feels a little artificial because we've got nothing here that's really truly got a real neutral feel to it. So I think in order to get something that really makes it pop, we need to clean it up a little bit, and we can do it any number of ways. Putting a light in the background would be nice, although I kind of like this this purpley gray. I think the way I'll.
Are you trying to wash the purple off the face?
Okay, am I trying to wash the purple off the face? A little bit. What I'm trying to do is, at the brightest parts of the face, remove the purple so that you only get the purple in the kind of as it's falling into the shadow. So that's basically it. That's exactly what I'm doing. Now, and you can do it, you can do this at any level you want. We can turn it up a little bit more. We're almost at the top here though, so we'll do it a little more. But what I want to do along with that is I now want to take another light, because as we all know, the more lights you use, the more you get paid, and Daniel needs a paycheck today. So I'm going to take this light here, this stand here, and we're going to give her a separation light. This is going to be a little bit of neutrality that we can add into our shot to give us that true neutral, because basically what we don't want is, again, the entire frame to have color in it. If you do that, it just doesn't feel right. There's just something off about it. It almost looks like robotic. And again, if that's what you're going for, that's fine, but I like to bring a little reality into my world. This is the second Profoto B10. This one's going to be in my B group. And the most important thing to do as well is when you want to be like a baller, right? Let's say that you're looking to be a baller. Am I on the wrong camera? Yeah, no, I'm good, okay. Always take your most expensive, fancy, edgy, cool light and use it for something weird, like the background, right? Because everybody buys their giant octabox and they're like, oh yeah, key light, blah, blah. No, everybody uses a hair light. That's right. You know why? Baller. All right, so I'm trying not to say the other thing I was saying earlier, so I'm saying baller now a lot. All right, so I'm going to use this as the hair light. This is our hair / separation light. I recommend, sandbag, yep. I recommend if you've got one of those like Broncolor Paras, the ones that are like $10,000, that's the best hair light. You start setting that up as a hair light, people are like, wow, this guy must really know what he's doing. All right, so here we are. I'm gonna turn off my front light. Okay, and I'm gonna just leave the B light up, which is the background light, and we'll turn this off as well. So this is just gonna be the, that's gonna be 2 shots. Wow, that really lit the space up. Let's turn this off actually. I'll give us better exposure, here we go. I might put the grid on this. Yep, you know why I'd put a grid on this? Yeah, basically what's happening is this light's going everywhere.
Well, you want to be a baller with a big octa. You smart guy.
You know what's even more expensive than an octa? A grid. I'm gonna put this grid on this octa. At this point, I can't back down because Seth will make fun of me. So I have to keep.
We're past that. You're banging against the wall, man.
No, it's gonna hit the wall. I might have to switch to a beauty dish. I was just using it because it was the most convenient. Plus, Seth borrowed my beauty dish, so I don't have it anymore.
It's right. Oh. It's in the closet.
Oh, he hasn't borrowed it yet. But on the what day is it? 20. Was
20-something.
what's the day that you're?
The 8th.
The 8th? No. What day are you doing the live demo?
Oh, the 20th.
On the 20th of September, if you're in the New York area, there's going to be a live demonstration in Adorama by the one and only Seth Miranda. And if if that wasn't enough, he's going to be using my beauty dish. Probably. He's definitely going to use it at this point now.
I'm going to give you another hint.
All right. You're going to give me another tent. All right, let's see what happens here. Okay, better. All right, so we're still getting a little bit of bounce, but it's okay. That's good. Okay. Yes, that's what I want. Again, baller. Like any normal person would just do it with like a grid or something, but not me. That's not how I operate.
You can't just use a strip.
I can't just use a strip like anybody else. I'm not just going to use a strip. I'm going to use V-flats. I'm going to use an octic. Baller. Thank you, Seth. This is not negative fill. I'm just going to point that out. For some reason, every time we use something, perfect. All right. Okay, this is good. Good enough. It's too bright right now. When I turn it down, we'll be okay.
Is it coming off of this?
I think it is. Yeah, it's bouncing off the key light, which is fine. I'm going to take my B light, which is the background, and I'm going to turn it down a stop. Oh, I'm going to put it in manual. I'm going to turn it down a stop. I'm going to turn my A light back on. All right. This is now, okay, we'll turn it, we're just going for it. We're here now. We're in it to win it. There's no turning back. This is the shot. When you see this next demo, next time I do this demo, there's gonna be a thumbnail. All right, there we go. Okay, so now, I can hear you clapping at home, and I appreciate it. All right. So now, what we're doing here is we've got this lavendery feel in the shadows. The highlights are feeling neutral. We've got this little bit of neutrality in the hair light, which also comes out as warm. It's kind of reflecting warm a little bit in our hair. And then we have the highlighter yellow, which brings us together to have this kind of warm, cool palette without being so obvious, right? Because the real trick to this, to being good at using gels, in my opinion, is to not be obvious with it. It's easy to take a gel and create something that's like, oh, that's cool, there's a gel, woohoo, you know? Let's just throw a can of smoke in here, you know, and they can still be cool like that. But when you're more subtle with it, I think it creates a little bit more of a refined image, we'll call it. Okay, questions, thoughts, concerns. Whew, that worked, that was good. We're never 100% sure these things are gonna work. Now, we're always 100% sure. Now, I suppose one question people might have is, did I need to use this Rotolight here? No. This, because it was neutral, could have been anything. And if you didn't have any gels, you could have used the Rotolight up here with color, right? Where I'm using it, it just has to do with where I placed it, you know, because I just wanted to show you some variety. But what we could have done, if you just have the one, if you pick up a RGBW LED, you know, maybe one of those cool tubes. I have those tubes too that I've used before, or this one here. Speed light with gels, anything with a gel, and then something neutral to kind of wash away in the highlights. That's why I have it right here in the front. It's washing away the highlights. All this positioning is really important. If we were to raise, and we can actually, here, we'll mess around a little bit. If we take our what is effectively our key light, the softbox here, and we raise it up a little bit more, we tilt it more this way, what we're going to get is a more shadow, right? This is going to create a deeper shadow on her face. Deeper shadow is going to change the angle of the light. It's going to make everything look a little different, and we can play around with what we like better. Again, refinement is key here. Okay. Okay, we can see versus here. See deeper shadows, especially here and here. And in those deeper shadows, you're getting more color. So depending on what you like in the person's face, you can operate either direction, right? See the difference? I like the first one better because I thought it would look nicer. I've also shot with kids a lot, so I kind of get a feel for what looks best there. Okay, questions, thoughts, concerns? I am flying. I am on fire. All right, good. Let's do one more thing. Let's do this. Thank you. Thank you, Seth, with the V-flat. Just to kind of go over this again, just in case that was unclear. The reason why we had to use the V-flat was because I was being a wise guy and setting up a giant light in the back, And what it was doing, and you can't see this here, is there's a big white wall behind me over here. So the light was bouncing off this wall, coming back and giving us too much fill. We want fill. Phil's a nice guy, but we want to be able to control our fill in this particular situation. Sometimes it's just nice to get it. It's like, oh, perfect, free fill. But in this case, we wanted control. That's why we didn't do it that way.
Would it work if the neutral light was a large soft light?
Okay, so would it work if the neutral light was a large soft light? At a certain point, it would stop working, and the reason for that is you don't want to fill all the shadows. You want to hit just the highlights with it. So you kind of could do it, but you'd have to bring it up and tilt it to kind of get the right angles. If you want to do this flat on thing, it needs to be smaller and punchier so you don't fill the whole face, right? Because if we just look at this light by itself, it's only getting the highlights of our face. If we use a large soft light, it's going to get in the shadows too, and we won't get as much of that transition. It'll work, it just won't have the same effect. And it's worth trying. You know, it's always worth messing around and trying the various different versions of this to see what works best for you. Okay, well, since we set up the giant octa, let's use that as our key light for this next one. And let's use a couple of different colors to do something a little funky. All right, so we're gonna take our giant octa. Oh, you know what? Let's do this. Let's do a profile. Wouldn't be on set if Daniel didn't do a profile shot. Let's have you here. Let's do a profile shot. Seth's ready for it. Okay, so I'm going to take this light and I'm going to send it from the back to create highlight on the back of her face, and that's going to be our neutral, at least to start with. So let's start here. Okay, perfecto. I'm going to put, I'm not going to give her much breathing room in the portrait because I don't really like that. I'm going to take the A light, turn it off. Oh, man. All right, take my B light. All right, so this is the B light in the back by itself. I am a 200th of a second, 5.6. Remember, at this exposure, only the light, only my flash is going to affect the shot. Okay, here we go. Nice, okay. So clearly, because it's from the back, and because this is how TTL often operates, it is slightly, can we say the word slightly? It is overexposed by a lot, which is fine. But we knew that was going to happen because that's how we do things around here. In order to get our proper exposure, again, because I'm tethered into Capture One, the simplest way to do that is going to be to grab our exposure slider. On the overexposed shot, we will drag it back until we get where we like it, which is probably about right here. That's 2 1/4 stops. So I will take my light, put it in manual. I will lower it by 1 stop, 2 stops, and then 1, 2, and that should be good. Okay. There we go. So now we have a base, simple shot. We can see that there's like this kind of warmish redness in Cadence's hair. We also have that little hint of color from her dress that we can now play with other lights. If we want to bring up the back of her and we want to highlight this dress, maybe let's try to use this yellow light again, or maybe the purple light for contrast. Let's start with yellow. Now I don't want the yellow on the front of her because we know we don't like the yellow so much on her face. So I'm going to turn this back on. I'm going to switch to gel mode, put it in the yellow mode. By the way, this is spring yellow. There's also pale yellow and medium yellow. Straw tint. I think I like spring yellow. Yeah. There ain't no spring yellow. Isn't that a saying? No, that's not right. Okay. Turn off the light again because I turn lights off a lot. Now, one thing you are definitely going to notice is that the background is being lit up by the light currently, right? We can see that. Because again, I don't have barn doors for this light. They are available, I just don't have them. Like we did before, I'm gonna use my shutter speed. No, I don't think we'll have to. Because I don't think we'll have to do it because when we look through the camera, we can see that because the light is closer to her than it is the background, we're barely getting any on the background. I think that's probably very acceptable. But if there's a problem, we'll use a V-flat. So we're at an 80th of a second, 5.6. Let's now try that with the flash. Again, we're in manual mode. All right, and now we're picking up that little bit of color in the back, and it's kind of, and we'll fix the back of your hair a little bit as well. It's too much, actually. I think actually 80th is too much. Okay, I'm gonna go up to 125. We got the hair back, let's try it. There we go. So now we're getting that little bit of light in the back. And again, this has got that little yellow in it, which is kind of picking up and bringing this color in nicely as we kind of come around. Again, subtle. We can go crazy with this. And the thing is, by increasing the light, it'll increase the saturation until we get too bright, then it'll decrease it. It's kind of a weird contrast there. But I think that's pretty good to start with. And now we have an extra light. And you know what they say, the more lights you use, the more you get paid. So I'm gonna bring this, this is, by the way, this is not something you'll see normally on YouTube. Just gonna put that out there. We're on YouTube, right? Yes, okay. So I'm gonna take this light here and I'm gonna bring it over here. My goal is to get it to spread, right, because I'll just spread, just using the feather and just add a little bit of lavenderiness into this front shoulder and the side of her face over there. So our shadows become a contrasting color to our highlights. The way we're gonna do that is we're gonna come over here and we're gonna turn B off. And we're just gonna, again, in TTL, we're gonna take a shot and see what it looks like. It'll look like that, because that's just the constant light. And we're gonna take A and turn that one on. Okay, and I'm gonna turn the modeling light on so you guys can see. Can they see that, or is that not? They probably can't see it. What's that? I can do it now. I didn't know if they could see it through the regular camera. It's too bright. I'll go to live view. All right, I'm gonna go to live view. The live view is not gonna give us necessarily an accurate exposure as to what the light is gonna do, but we'll give you. All right, so oh, I can't do it. Wait, I can do it like that. I'll turn the flash off. Okay, so yeah, we can't see it in live view. I didn't know if they could see it through the, sorry guys, a little technical. I can see it there though. So can you do a profile for me? I'm gonna turn that on. I can see where it's falling. All right, so at 1/125th of a second at 5.6, we're going to kill this live view because this is probably very confusing. And we're going to take a shot. This shot is going to include only the flash in the front, which is the A group, the one in the small softbox, which has a lavender gel on it, and the constant light in the back. So no backlight. Okay, and we can see, again, that's way too bright because the camera's always going to try to give you what it thinks is the right exposure. We know that's not the right exposure because we want it to be dramatic. So I'm going to come over to my exposure slider and I'm going to drop it down until I barely get any detail there, like somewhere around there is probably where I want it to be. And again, that's about 3 stops. I'm going to come over here. Now you might say, Daniel, 'cause that's my name, you know, if you used a light meter, wouldn't that be easier? Because people always love to say that I'm not using a light meter when I'm in TTL. You still don't know, unless you've just done it a bunch of times, where you want the exposure to be. Like I might think I want it 3 stops under. I'm not really sure until I see it. So that's why I do it the way I do it. All right, excuse me. I think I muted myself for that. All right, so again, now we've got that a yellowy light coming from the back. We've got this pale lavender on her face in the shadow. And now, the client's here and they're thinking to themselves, why am I paying Daniel so much? This looks terrible. What's going on? And that's when you kind of walk over, you have a sip of your coffee, maybe you talk to your assistant for a second, like, oh, you know, and then you go, oh, I'm sorry, let's get a shot. And boom, you nail it, right? That's how we do it. This is the shot, pale lavender, neutral on the eyes. Look at those eyes. This little bit of hint of yellow here coming around her shoulder. subtle. Now, if you wanted to just go all purple in the shadows, we could also change this light, right? Because that's the beauty of these RGBW LEDs. Not only that you get to say a lot of letters, but that you can change the color. So I can be like, you know what, I want purple over here. Boom, I got purple. And she's gonna be like, I got purple. And you can do that as well. And guess what? Doesn't look good, does it? Exactly. That's why you should always stick with what Daniel says at the beginning. That's for the guy in the comments that was writing you should use purple, because I'm sure somebody was there. You know who you are. No, I'm just kidding. All right, so here we are, back where we were. Subtle use of gels, shaping the face, bringing color in. Again, don't overdo it here, right? Don't overdo it here. Don't underdo it, I guess. Although underdoing is not bad. This is not bad either. What we really want to look at here is ways to use gels in a manner to bring out the vibe of the shoot that we want without kind of screaming, hey Daniel, I'm using a gel, right? You know, except for in the case of this one, which I like, because you know, sometimes you gotta love it. Sometimes you want to go real bright and really push the color. Sometimes you want to contrast it. But always you want to be thinking when you're using gels, why am I doing this? You know, here's a neutral picture at the beginning, very Brady Bunch style. Why am I going to use a gel versus not? Where am I at here? What is the most important thing I'm trying to create here? And what we really want to do is make an image that has something that's just a little bit more than just capturing an image. That's why we're lighting, right? We're lighting not because we need exposure. There's plenty of light in here. You can see me in the video camera. You're lighting because you have an idea. You're lighting because you're trying to put feeling into the shot. You're lighting because you're trying to create something that you have in your head. And if color is part of that, then gels are a great way to do it. Any questions? All right, so check out, is Gavin here next week? I'm back in 2 weeks. No, nothing next week on Thursday, so you guys should, you know, take the day off, stretch, take some pictures, make sure you walk, hydrate. What's that?
Talk about your podcast.
Oh, I also have a podcast. Thank you, Seth. Seth is great.
Link is in chat.
The link is in the chat for my podcast. Check that out. I appreciate all the support that we get here. Cadence is Cadence Frank, ta-da, who you can see in all places where Cadence Frank might be, including cadencefrank.com. Yeah. I always make that joke that I say people's name is .com, but she actually does have her name as it, so there you go. The one and only. So if you go there, you're going to find Cadence. But yeah, check us out. If you're not subscribed to the channel, please do so and ring the bell so you get notifications. We're live mostly every Thursday in store in New York City. So if you're in the area, you got some time to come in on the 22nd? 20th. Check out Seth. Seth's amazing. Last Witness. Thank you, Seth. Thank you, everybody watching. And I need like a good like catchphrase.